Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we are back with another brand new Paleo Revived release. I have absolutely been having a great time so far with these figures. I've been loving each and every one of these Paleo Revived releases. I love the fact that Dino Mike Mac continues to create these figures, and not only create them, but he is like diving in head first because there are so many more coming, which is super exciting. But I even have more, again, quite a bit more here now to show you guys that I'm so excited about as these reviews go on. I cannot wait to continue to show you how crazy cool these figures are. But this time we've got ourselves a Jakapil. How awesome is that? Like, definitely a very underappreciated species and a beautiful looking version here from Dino Mike Mac. I think each and every one of these, obviously they're all the same sculpt, but I've given them different, well, kind of different paint jobs. But for the most part, I wanted them to look sort of the same. And one is really quite different, with a few of the others being slightly different. But again, you see that often in the animal kingdom, where you'll see like the same species looking slightly different from each other as far as like patterning or tones of color and stuff like that. So that's kind of what I went to achieve with these guys, and definitely happy with the final product. But of course, that's mostly due to how darn nice the figures look in the first place. So we're going to go ahead and get a closer look. I'm going to just bring the camera up here just a little bit so we can take that closer look. So again, all of these figures are the same sculpt, so there's no need to specifically go over each and every one, you know, with like a very in-depth look. You can see that the head sculpt looks pretty darn nice. If my camera would focus, there we go. Head sculpt looks pretty darn nice. We've got a really quite nice small beak right there. You can see the nostrils sculpted out, the eye sculpted out as well. The skin texture, although really quite fine, especially considering the size. You can see the figure's pretty darn small, and you would of course expect that with a Jakapil. You can see that the skin texture looks pretty decent. I did try to add quite a bit of variation of color with like blues and browns here in the face. But as you move down into the body, you start to see those sort of like scoots moving down through the body, something that again is like one of the biggest trademarks, I would say, one of the most defining aspects of a Jakapil. And you can see they move through the body the entire way out into the tail, giving the dinosaur a little bit of like an armored sort of a look. As you lead down, you can see the arms are held into the body in a really nice natural position. The figure as a whole is in a neutral position, which is something that you often find when it comes to the smaller non-articulated figures in this series. They almost always have that kind of almost like a maquette sort of a look where they're just standing in a neutral position, which I actually really quite like as well. Moving through the body, you can pick out the skin texture, but again, considering the figure is pretty small, it might be a little bit hard to really appreciate how good the detail is, but it is definitely there. As you lead back, you can of course continue to see how nice the detail is. Leading down into the legs, you can get a nice sense of the muscle definition and everything, and then you lead down into the feet, and the feet definitely have a really nice bird-like look to them. Nicely sculpted toes, nicely sculpted nails as well. I like the fact that the nails have kind of like a genuine sharp look to them, which is a plus. And then you lead up and out into the tail, and you can see the tail kind of leads down and back up, just a slight curve to it. It's kind of straight out, but just a slight bend to the tail leading along. And of course, that's pretty much all you're really going to see. Again, from one side to the other, considering it is in a neutral position, you're really not going to see much difference between the two different sides of the figures, but it looks absolutely awesome. When it comes to a Jakapil, again, that's definitely one of, if not the nicest figures I've ever seen for that species. Now, as I said, I've basically given them all kind of a similar look, but I've just, you know, given some of them slightly different features. Like this one has a little bit of a brighter blue to the tail compared to the others, and some of them have more of a grayish look, while some of them have a grayish look with a slight bluish tint. Like if we look at this one's more of just like the standard traditional gray with, again, a little bit of a brighter blue tail, whereas this one I gave kind of like the gray look, but if it's not going to focus, there we go, but with like some slight bluish tints to it. So they are a little bit different as far as the coloration goes, and you'll see that as we continue to move through. Again, this one I think I gave a little bit more of a bluish look to as well, but again, you have like that greenish blue to the face, and again the different variations of color to the face and everything. And we can again continue to have like that striping effect moving through the body. But then there is one that's definitely a little bit different from the others, and that would be this one, which I wanted this one to kind of be the female. This one is lacking the striping moving through the body and has a little bit more of kind of like a boring look to it as far as the colors go, with just basically grayish and brownish tones and stuff. So not nearly as much, coloration or flashiness put into this one, and that was my goal, again, to give this one kind of more of like a female look for my little flock, I guess you could say, of Jakapil. We'll go ahead, readjust the camera, and then we'll get a size. Actually, we'll use the female one here for the size. And obviously, being a Jakapil, it's quite small. For a length, you are looking at about a little bit over 3.5 inches, or again, a little over 9 centimeters. And then for a height, about 1.25 inches, or a little bit over 3 centimeters, heading toward 3.5 centimeters, but not quite there. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect A Human Being next to our Paleo Revived Jakapil, and as you can very clearly see, they are definitely quite small, and considering the species, that's exactly what you would expect to see, so definitely not a surprise there. We've also got a Mattel Velociraptor and Dilophosaurus next to the Jakapil to continue to give you an idea of the size, as well as 2 minifigures, as we have a Mattel and Captives minifigure here next to our Jakapil, showing you that they are even a little bit smaller than your standard minis, but I would basically say they are in minifigure, size range overall, so that should give you a pretty good idea, I think, of the size. And then for one final comparison, we also have the Mechanical Arm Baryonyx, which is also a Wave 2 Paleo Revived figure, next to the Spinoceratops as well, which is a Wave 1 Paleo Revived figure, again here with our Jakapil, to give you one final idea of the size. So these Paleo Revived Jakapil figures are super, super fun. I've really wanted a good, higher quality version of a Jakapil. Obviously, the Mattel version is really fun to have, but it's not your most highest quality version of that species, and definitely has a more toy-like look, whereas this one has a bit more of a realistic look, which I really quite enjoy. And on top of that, the sculpt, although really quite small, is very highly detailed and definitely looks very impressive in person. I feel like you can't truly appreciate how impressive these little figures look until you get them in hand and paint them up, and it'll really give you a whole new appreciation for how good the sculpts are. And as per usual, when it comes to Dino Mike Max Paleo Revived line, the sculpt looks great from head to tail. We've got a very nice kind of neutral pose for this one, which is again pretty much the standard when it comes to the Paleo Revived figures. I would actually like to see in the future maybe some versions of the Paleo Revived figures, but posed with different scenes you could create. Again, I love the neutral pose, but it would also be fun to actually see some without the neutral pose, maybe something he could do in the future, which would be pretty fun. But again, the neutral pose is something that I've always really been a big fan of because it gives me that maquette feel, again, really feeling like a maquette from like the Jurassic line or something like that, and also kind of reminds me of the old Walking with Dinosaurs toys, which is also really fun. But overall, again, the figures look great. They're nice and small, so they're very convenient to put pretty much anywhere, and they're fun to paint, and because they're so small, they're not all that long of a paint job to, endure. You basically can get them painted up fairly quickly because, again, they are so small and so nicely detailed. So if you are interested, I will include a link in the description to where you can grab yourself a nice little flock of Jakapil to add to your collection. And in typical Paleo Revived fashion, these figures are very nice and reasonably priced because you can get 3 Jakapil for $6. So cheap to get these in your hands and in your collection. That's just so crazy. I always am so blown away by his pricing for his figures. So if you do want to get these into your collection, and again, add a nice little flock of Jakapil to your dinosaur shelf, of course, make sure you check the links in the description where you can head on over and grab these right now. And of course, like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.